Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. Today, I just unpacked the Teal Treasures Bundle from Bargain Bead Box from their anniversary sale. So I kind of wanted to give you an idea what's in it, and then I'm gonna plan to make some earrings today. So I think that'll be fun. So this is the box. I'm gonna bring it out just a little bit. Actually, I'm gonna put it up here and over to the side so I have space. So I'm thinking about earrings. So I ended up with 2 of these pendants, which will make a really cool pair of earrings, and something simple. I also have some of the earring findings, which I love. I'll show you up close. Those are cute. So I'm going to do some seed bead dangle earrings with those. And let's see what else we've got. I've got this, which is so pretty. So nice and sparkly, see-through, very emerald looking. It's even got little cubic zirconias in there. So I ended up with 2 of those in my box. So that'd make a cool pair of earrings. And let's see. And also, just for a statement piece, we have some very large AB coated glass beads here. They're about, in American, I'd say maybe 3/4 inches long. So they have a lot of shine to them. And then I like bead cones for stuff like this when I make earrings. So I found these in my stash. They didn't come in the kit, but they were in my stash, and I think those will fit nicely. So I'm going to use those. So these are the items I'm going to make earrings out of today. I'm going to make more with this kit. Of course, you know, it's the turquoise and the greens, which are just really pretty together. I'm thinking maybe this on top. Can you see that? So that might look good on top of that. Just for a little added. But I don't really have any other ABs. And most of these are stone, but I've got some big chips here. And of course, I wish they would have given us a list, but it looks like probably dyed agate. You know, a lot of the pieces have banding going through. But it's pretty, and I'm going to make a necklace later out of that. Then I've got some green stones. These are glass crystal, of course. And I've got some tiny little ones too. So I'll figure out something to make with those. And then we have a couple of bead cap or spacer beads too. So looks like we have a smooth, round, and a bumpy. So I think those look pretty nice. You can see the texture on that. So I might use them in my earrings as well. And then from my stash, so I can use the smaller beads, I had some silver hoops. If you remember the gold ones I made recently, and I had a bunch of silver included. And then I pulled some jump rings, because you always need those at some point. I've got some ear wires in a bag, and these are all from my stash, so they weren't included in the kit, but if you go to Bead Box Bargains, they've always got different findings and really cool ones. So yeah, I think these earrings will be nice and quality. And so again, I'm just improvising I think you know, sometimes it's kind of fun just to roll with the flow. But I've got some, I think these are 5mm. I'm just going to stash them here. Okay, and then I've got a couple of head pins, just because you always need head pins for earrings. And they're not always straight. I've got a little, you know, plastic coated tool here that works very nicely and straighten up head pins without damaging them. So I think these are 2-inch. So I'll definitely have to work with them, but I think they'll be plenty long enough for these earrings. So I'm just going to straighten these up first. So I guess the first one I want to work with is this. So it should be pretty simple. I'm going to run the head pin up. And the reason I chose this bead cap is mainly it's kind of modern. I like the modern style of it. Plus, you know, the bottom part fits over this nicely, so it just makes this into a drop. So I thought that was kind of cool. And let's see, if I put this on, would I have enough to turn it? I do know that's going to be quite close. Now, I don't need a huge loop, so I'm just going to go at the very end of my pliers and just make the smallest loop I can. Okay, that actually works perfectly. Okay. Maybe not the prettiest loop in the world, but I don't care. Oops. Sorry about the shaking. So all I want to do is make sure that this loop touches at the very end. And I think that looks good. Nothing's going to fall out. So we'll go ahead and assemble the other one. And I can't tell if there's a wide and a narrow end. I'm going to just double check. Yeah, I think there is kind of. Alright, so just fit it on the best you can. I'm going to put my crystal on. And then, oops, hold on to it and turn until I get it where I want it. I just want to make sure to use the smallest end of my pliers so I can at least get that to touch. Be secure just so the ear wire won't fall out. So then I'm going to go back and forth here and make sure everything is tight. Let's see, just a little bit more. See, I think I might have to use my needle nose and just kind of bring it in a little bit more. There, that's perfect. And I'm going to double check this one. There we go. As long as they're both tight. Okay. Then, looks like the opening is to the inside. These are kind of unusual earrings, so they've got like a little spring here, which is kind of cute. I'm just going to open that up this way and slide this on and close her up. And I'm going to make sure it's tight so nothing slips out. Okay, that's pretty. Okay, there you have it. One pair of earrings. They were quick and easy. I think they look good. I like the style. And you know, I like big and bulky sometimes. You know, if you're gonna make jewelry, sometimes you just gotta have straight statement jewelry and make a statement with it. Close that up, and probably best to use my needle nose on that so I can see it. Okay. One simple but cool pair of earrings. And you know, if you were lucky enough to get the box, these are just ideas on what you can do with it. You know, plus I love beading it anytime, so might as well do it. Okay, let's see what these, I think I'd like to just keep really, really simple. So I'm just gonna put the ear wires on. So earrings don't all have to be elaborate. Sometimes simple is just fancy as can be. So I'm going to pick an end that I want to the front, which is going to be this end. I'm going to bring it together. Okay. And see, I didn't bring it together enough. It slipped right out, so that lets me know I've got to bring this in all the way, make it tight. And you get stuck, sometimes you just got to push it together from here. All right, that's perfect. And I'm going to do the same with this. Let's see. I want this end to the front. It's got a little bit more silver around the edge. And then I'm just going to finagle it closed. This one doesn't want to finagle, but I don't want to ruin it either. So since that one doesn't want to close all the way, I'm just going to take my pliers and go end to end and squeeze it together. Gently, of course. You know, I definitely don't want it to come apart or squish it in, but that's perfect right there. That's together. Okay, second pair of earrings in just a couple of minutes. And then these are going to be different because I'm going to seed bead those. But these, that is so pretty. Look at that. So that's going to make a nice statement earring. So I'm going to grab a couple of jump rings because it's definitely going to have a loop, you know, going this way, so it'll close properly. So I'm just going to loop this around and close her up. I heard that little snap. And then I've got a little raised area here, so I always, you know, just go over that to make sure that that's flat. And that's mainly so it doesn't snag on your hair or your clothes, because it's no fun when that happens. Okay. And putting the other one on. that. When I do this part, I always do it very, very gently. All I want is for this to go together and feel smooth. And sometimes you just have to work with it so it feels right. So a little bit of a raised edge on there. Okay, perfect. All right. And next, we're going to add the ear wire. So this is going to go in the front like that. Yep. Sorry, I have a tendency to shake the camera. I've got it down pretty low so I can see it and make sure I'm in frame. But I do hit it every now and then. Okay, so I'm just checking to see if I have everything together here, and I'm doing this extremely gently. Just don't want it to come open. I'm gonna set these over here. And one more. Make sure I put it on correctly so it lays that way. And I'm going to attempt to close it back. These are not as easy. And I have to hold the little spring out of the way. You know, of course you can use the regular ear wires, any type you like. So these are just idea starters. To show you what I can make, you know, from a box of beads. I'll squish that together a little bit more. See, it doesn't seem to want to go together. Yeah, I don't want the little spring to slide down either. So I have to put a little bit more pressure on it. Okay, there we go. I think that's it. Just make sure this doesn't slide down. Okay, perfect. All right, 3 quick pair of earrings, and I'm going to go and look for some seed beads to complement this, and then, you know, just kind of do some layouts and see what I'd like for how this one to dangle. And I'll be right back. Okay, so I've decided to use the green 4mm crystal beads, the bumpy spacers, and I pulled a few of the silver seed beads out. And after playing with it, I've got my design on how I want the fringe to look. And I'm going to keep it simple. I'm not going to use so many seed beads, but I am going to use these for anchor beads. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 of the crystals. And I tied on here already, so we're going to tie on it the first, and I'm going to come back up through the second one. And then back up this bead, the second bead. I'm just basically doing a break stitch around the holes. And these beads will fit perfectly around. I tried it with seed beads earlier, but it was just too small, so I wasn't feeling it. So I'm going to add another bead. I'm going to come up through the back. And make sure nothing tangles. And then back up this way. And with fringe, I like to have an odd number of beads anyway. So that always seems to work out best, because I like to go with longer in the middle. Alright, just make sure your work stays tight. And I'm going to add another crystal here. I'm going to come up through the back. Very carefully. Okay, and you'll see a little bridge thread there. That's why I chose green, those, just so it wouldn't show in the final product. Okay, and then just pull it nice and snug. Not too tight, but nice and snug. All right, I'm going to add the last one. So I'm going to have 5 strands on here, but I chose, you know, the 4mm just so it'll look fuller. Okay, so that's perfection right there. Okay, you see that? Okay, so I'm going to lay it down here. So when I do fringe, I like to lay my work down because it makes it easier to come back up through the fringe. So I'm going to add 2 crystals here. I'm going to add a spacer and a crystal. And I'm going to pull my work up like so. And I'm just keeping it simple. Then I'm going to add a silver spacer bead, or my anchor bead, and then I'm going to go back up through all of these beads. And then I'm going to tighten my strand here. You don't want it tight, you know, where it's not gonna hang right, but you do want it a little bit of bend in it, just like that, just so it looks better. Okay, I'm gonna come back up through the back of this one, and I have a knot in my thread, so I'll get that out in just a second. Okay, so you see how that just kind of bends over. You don't want it to flop or be too loose, but you do want it just tight enough. You don't want it stiff like this. You want it just to bend over like you want it to. All right, and I'm going to go through the front of this one. Okay, and layer down. Okay, so I have a knot to get out, so love knots. So let's see if I have a way to pull that out. And never pull your knot tighter. It's better just to, you know, get it out as soon as it happens, but I didn't. So it might take me a second to get through this one and pull it out. Okay, I got in between there. All right, got it out, yay, okay. All right, so I'm gonna pull the tail thread aside. That's gonna get woven in later. And I'm gonna add 4 of the crystal beads this time, so it's hard to see the holes in them, even with the super glasses, but is what it is. Okay, let's see. Sometimes if you turn them, you can find the holes. You can kind of see them through the, you know, with the bead mat on the bottom. Okay. So got another round on. And so I'm doing laying it on the table, you know, on the bead mat, just so I can get a good grip when I bring everything back up. So I'm going to run my needle back up through all the beads. And I'm going to run it to the back of the piece. Main reason I'm doing to the back is because I'm going to come up through the back and then through the front. That's just going to anchor, you know, the first row of beads just a little bit better. Okay, so to tighten it, I'm just going to pull on this end and that end and just put it where I want it. That's going to be cute. Okay, so at first I'll pull it tight, but then I'm going to let it rest just a little bit. I'm going to bring it up through the loop carefully and back up through this bead. So if you see what I'm doing here, I'm just kind of double anchoring everything. You can't really see the threads, but I have an idea for here anyway. Okay, so as long as it's not flopping, it'll hang nicely, see? Okay, so we're gonna lay this down and make sure my tail thread is out of the way. Can't really tie it off yet. But as long as everything else is hanging correctly, that's all I care about. Okay, so now I'm gonna add 6 of the crystal beads. 1, 2. Those holes are a bear to find. Okay, so we got 6 of those, a spacer, and a bottom bead. I'm going to bring those up. So what you'll have is 3, 5, and 7 crystal beads on the top row here. So I'm going to add a silver seed bead. You see how it just accents lightly. That's all I wanted. I don't want it to be too silver heavy, although I actually like silver heavy earrings, but green is the theme. Alright, so I've made it through, up through all the beads, and I'm going to go up through the back of this, of the earring finding here. Then I'm going to pull gently, like so. And then I want to make sure that this one is not too tight, that it just kind of goes over. And I'm going to go up through the next bead. And I'm showing you on this earring, but I'm going to let you do the other earring, because you'll always be able to, you know, go back and rewind and go through it. Okay, so now we're going to come back in. So I'm going to add 4 crystals. Let's see, 1. Where's my holes? 2. 3. And 4. I'm just going to go ahead and add the anchor bead on too. Okay, I like the way these are turning out. I think green and silver look nice together. So I'm coming up through the back of the loop here and just pulling. Okay, so now I'm going to pull it tight and then just kind of, you know, make sure everything hangs the way I want it to. And we're on the last strand. So I'm gonna add 2 of these. One of those and another one of these. Okay, now I'm running back up, always skipping the seed bead at the bottom. And then I'm going to go through the back of this. Okay, and then I'm going to pull and just make sure everything lays down the way I want it to. Then I'm going to tie a half hitch here. Another half hitch. And just make sure you don't pull on the strand threads, you know, just so you don't tighten them up. But put half hitch, and then all I gotta do is go back down through the beads. And trim, just making sure you're not catching any of the beads. And I'm gonna have plenty of thread for the other one. Okay, perfect. And then the last thing I'm going to do is pull my thread off the needle, and I'm going to thread in my tail thread. And I'm just going to go down this strand as well. And trim. I like it. That is so pretty. Okay. So last, I'm going to go ahead and open this one up. Thread that on. And close it up and make sure it's tight. And then just make sure to get my little springy thing out of the way, and then I'm just going to tighten it up here just to make sure that it doesn't go through. Okay. I'm just going to carefully make sure that's all even and that this won't come down. Okay. Cute. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do the other pair of earrings, and so if you're following along, then I mean you can use any 4mm crystal bead, any earring findings that you have. You know, this is basically just a basic technique just to give you some ideas. And if you'd like to pause here and rewind and just go back for the other earring, you can finish the other earring up, and I'll meet you back here in just a second. All right, here's what these look like. I'm very happy with these. So they're pretty subtle, you know, not too much on the silver, a lot on the green. But I think those are going to hang nicely, and they're not too long. You know, they're only about maybe 3 inches long. So, yeah, I like those. Okay, so I'm going to try one more. So I've got these teardrop earring things. So I'm going to put some beads together and just kind of see what would look good with these. I already pre-pulled them apart because sometimes they're not easy to pull apart. But all right, so I'm gonna take a look at what I've got and go from there, and I'll be right back. Alright, I've played with the earring wires and kind of laid out the way I want it to go. Took a minute. I had to play with it, but I'm pretty satisfied with what I've got coming. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 4mm and I'm going to add 5. And it is a good idea to lay it out first, like put the beads on the strand and just see what works and what doesn't. Because once you put it on, you know, you've only got one side to work with, so you've got to put it on anyway. So I just put the beads on ahead of time and then took a look at it. So I'm just going to show you. So I'm going to put 5 of the 4mm beads on. And I tried one of the green agates, the larger ones, but it wouldn't go down the earring and, you know, come to the middle, because that's what I was experimenting with. And it just wouldn't work. I think the holes are a little bit too small to fit. But, alright, so just a matter of getting the holes in there. Okay. And I'm going to add a spacer, which I love these. Okay, and then next I'm going to use I think these are 6mm crystals. So I'm going to put 6 of these on. So this one's going to be all crystal beads. So pretty. And I like that these are kind of a clear crystal and then these are kind of milky. So it just gives a little bit of extra texture in there. And then I'm going to add 3 more. And another spacer. And 3 more. So it's looking good so far. And it's going to lay center where I want it to. Of course, I'm going to have to adjust it anyway, but... Oops. Sorry about the shake. Okay, and then I'm going to finish off with 5 of the little green crystals. I think these are these are 4mm. And then these should be 6 rondelles. So, you know, if you want to use your own beads, if you don't have the kit, you know, this is just a technique exercise. So I would use 4mm and then 6mm rondelles and then your spacers, and just try it out first, you know, before you come up with your final design. That way you can know if it lays evenly, and if not, you can just take them off and adjust. Okay, got that where I want it. And then I'm gonna flip it over and try to fit this back in that tiny little hole. Let's see if I can get that in there. If not, that's what needle nose pliers are good for. So I can just kind of shimmy it in there, just like so. And then I'm going to make sure the other side is secure, and then I'm going to just kind of crimp this a little bit just to make sure it's nice and tight on there so the end doesn't come out. I think that lays pretty nicely. Now it may go a little bit back and forth, but I don't really think there's enough to put another bead on there, so I'm not going to worry about it. Now there is a little hole here, and I'm not really interested in you know, putting a dangle in there, because I just kind of like hoops to be hoops. So I'm going to see if I can fold that back. Hopefully I won't break it. If I do, I'll have to do this video part over again, but oh well. Okay, there, that'll work. All right, so basically I'm just bending it back so it doesn't show. Okay, I am totally happy with that. Isn't that cute? So I'm going to go ahead and put the other one on so I know what I want. So I'm just going to get the bead scoop out and scoop up some beads here. Grab a few of those. And then some spacers. I'll have to separate them because I got 2 on one side, which is okay. I just want the bumpy ones for this project. And then the smooth ones, I'm just going to put back in. And I'll use that at a later time. Okay. So again, I'm just going to finish this earring since they're pretty quick. So I'm going to add 5, provided I can find the holes. Okay, got my 5 there. Add another one. And then I'm going to add 3 of these. Holes are a lot easier to see on these. So I'm just going to need 9 of these on here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. So if you love to wear green, all 3 of these earrings are just going to look awesome. With your outfit. Okay, so last 5. Sometimes I just gotta kind of feel for the holes. You know, you can kind of feel when it goes in. And last one. Perfect. Okay, and I gotta finagle that back in. So I'm gonna use my needle nose pliers and just fit it in, and then I'm going to kind of crimp it here. And then I want to bring in this loop and just fold it back because I'm not gonna need it. And of course, I guess needle nose pliers are the best way to do this. But once you've got it up some, maybe it'll be able to fold it over. Not always easy. Nothing ever is. But that's what I want out of it. So let's see if I can get that around. Get that folded up. Yep, there we go. Okay. All right, so 2 more pair of earrings. I'm gonna add an ear wire, and I like these because they're stainless steel. It's one of the reasons why I'm using them. Not real fond of the little spring right here, but you know, stainless steel are pretty much hypoallergenic, so I can't complain about that. I just have to be able to get them closed to where there's no opening here so the little spring doesn't slide down. So I just have to tighten that up and then check it so it's still not quite tight enough. So I gotta bring that down and that together a little bit more. And of course, switching pliers all the time. As long as that doesn't go down, then I've got it in the right spot. Okay, those are kind of cute, actually. Okay, bring that in. And I'm just making sure that this is in front, you know, because there is a front and a back. The back is, you know, crimped right there. So I just want to make sure that, you know, it's going to fall to the front. Okay, and just a little bit more here. I'm just going to squeeze that part together any way I can, just to make sure that that little spring doesn't go down. I think I've got the hang of it now. Okay, so here are 5 earring ideas from one kit. So we've got the hoop earrings, and of course you can find all the findings on Bargain Bead Box or Bead Box Bargains, the sister site. And I'll leave a link down below in case you want to order a subscription, because you always get a 30% off coupon for all your orders. And then, so basically I've got some hoops, I've got some dangles that were sewn on, I've got some simple pendant earrings here, and then a use of a bead cone, you know, and a large bead. So I hope you enjoyed my video, and I'm going to think of some more ideas, and I'll be back with more videos once I get some more ideas. All right, you guys have a great day, and may creativity be your guide. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave your comments down below. May creativity be your guide.